everyone, and welcome to Time and Money Mastery. We are your co-hosts. I'm Indiana.
And I'm Sam. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on any of our episodes. Now, let's get started. Hey friends, and welcome to another episode of Time and Money Mastery. It's your co-host Sam here, and today's episode is going to be all about your CEO schedule. Now, this is a concept that I was introduced to by a number of people, but it was actually only until recently that I've started adopting this CEO schedule and the mindset that comes with it. And it's been phenomenal in how I've been operating my schedule, in how I've been seeing my time. I've been testing it out for a while now, and now I think it's safe to say that I'm ready to share the results with all of you. So, a CEO schedule is not a list of tasks to do or a bunch of meetings you need to attend. Your CEO schedule is basically your schedule on your terms. And that's it. That's the simplest way to explain it. Now, I'm going to share with you the most important point of this entire episode. So, are you ready? You are the CEO of your life. You are the board of directors, you are the founder, you're the chief financial officer, the chief technology officer. You get to call the shots. Now, knowing this, that you are the CEO of your life, I want you to answer a question. Do you make decisions as a CEO when it comes to your schedule? Now, think about what that means for a second. If you are making decisions as a CEO, what might that look like? The reason why this is such an important question is because I actually realized when I was asked this question that I was operating my schedule according to everyone else's expectations of what I should have been doing with my time. I had my goals, I had my outcomes, I had my dreams, I had my life plan sorted out. And yet still, when it came to my schedule, I was operating from a place of almost like I felt bad for making decisions about my own schedule and setting the right kind of boundaries around what I was saying yes to. And that was a big thing for me. And being able to actually address that is what opened up my schedule and freed up so much time that I didn't actually realize I was just giving away. So, let me run you through my life prior to adopting a CEO schedule and a CEO mindset. So I would say yes to things I just didn't have the time for. I'd say yes to commitments that I didn't particularly want to do, either because I felt bad or because I felt obligated to, almost like I had no choice, which is silly because we always have a choice. I'd spend my time on things that probably didn't need my attention. I refused to delegate or outsource in my business. And in my personal life, I found that I avoided asking for help. And just like a company that can't grow if their CEO is, wasting time, can't prioritize, or refuses to delegate, I wasn't growing as efficiently or enjoyably as I could have. I was getting caught up in doing the things that weren't, they were important, but they weren't the best use of my time. A mentor of mine once said that if you want to be invaluable and you want your business to grow, to take a look at what you're spending your time on and seeing what you can automate, delegate, or eliminate. And whatever is left is going to be the stuff that only you can do. Now, following this strategy actually clears up your schedule for the things that are important, but also cannot be done by anyone but you. And this mindset ensures that everything you choose to invest your time in is a worthy investment. And this mindset doesn't really just apply to business either, or just affects your business. In the month of October 2020, Glenn and I had an entire month of trips and mini holidays planned. And it was in this time that I realized just how important the CEO schedule and the CEO mindset was. I'm actually recording this episode in May of 2021. So you can see how long I've been testing, this mindset and this approach to my schedule. So I safe to say, I think I've tested it for long enough to know that it definitely works. But anyway, in that period of time, I was actually supposed to do a month-long challenge in collaboration with Gals That Brunch. Shout out to Tiffany and the GTB team. But without the CEO schedule, there is absolutely no way that I would have been able to enjoy my holiday and also show up for this challenge and give it my all and, just make the most of the opportunity that I was given. So past Sam would have blocked out 30 to 60 minutes roughly every single day to, record a video, post a graphic online onto social media, do my engagements and share the posts and do all of the stuff that was involved in the challenge. And had I decided to take that approach, that would have taken out a sizable chunk out of each of my days. And it would have been something I would have had to plan my day around, which would also mean that I wouldn't be fully present because I just had this other thing going on in the back of my mind that I couldn't really forget about or put aside. But using the CEO schedule and the CEO mindset that came with it meant that I looked at this situation and I had a choice to make. The things that I knew for certain was, number one, I didn't want to turn down the opportunity because the collaboration was super exciting to me. Number two, I didn't want to be pulled away from my holiday every single day, even if it just felt like, oh, it's just an hour. Like if I could have avoided taking any time out of my schedule for the holiday, that would have been ideal, because I also knew that as the CEO version of me, not only did I deserve uninterrupted holiday time, but I also knew that the investment in myself and in my relationship was just as important, if not more important to me. And so I asked myself, how can I automate, delegate, or eliminate this process or part of this process so I could still provide incredible value and still give it 100% whilst still enjoying my holiday? So what I did, I decided to spend a chunk of 2 days batching content. I invested in a scheduling tool. And this is the part that CEO Sam was okay with, but past Sam would have been like biting her nails, super stressed about the decision for, because I use the scheduling platform to plan out and auto publish my daily content. I still invested time each day to show up online and engage with the community, but it was like 10 to 15 minutes daily compared to 30 to 60 minutes that could have easily turned into 2 hours. And that particular scheduling tool saved me literally hours over the course of a month. Like just that month, like I still use it to this day. So it saved me an enormous amount of time, but it was an investment, like a financial investment. I had to put down some cash in order to use this tool. And while there are free versions out there, I knew that for my purposes that I would be better off with the paid version. And as a CEO, I had to make the decision, is it worth the time, the money investment for the time that I'll be saving? And this is why adopting that CEO mindset and making decisions as the CEO you are is so super important. Whether you've got a business or not, you are still the CEO of your life. We are the ones that get to decide how we invest our time, how we invest our money. But a lot of the time, we are more willing to give away our time to save some money without realizing that we can earn money back, but we can never earn our time back. And that's something that's just, it's incredible because I know that intuitively, like I know that in my soul. And yet sometimes I still have to remind myself, is it really worth saving the $50 that it would take me if I did this myself? Or is the 5 hours that I would have spent on this worth more to me? It's crazy. It's actually absolutely insane. We are the gatekeepers of our schedule, and yet so many of us live being mastered by our time instead of being the masters of our time. CEOs make decisions, and the truly great CEOs make decisions with, company outcomes and values in mind. When they know that it's aligned with their ultimate purpose, they don't apologize for making these sometimes tough decisions, sometimes decisions that people don't agree with. Like when I told my mom I was spending money for an Instagram post scheduling tool, she's like, like, can you not just log on every single day and do it? Like, to her, it was just baffling. And then when I explained to her how much time I would be saving, she kind of got it. I think she still judges me a teeny bit, but that's totally fine. That's the kind of stuff that CEO Sam and CEO you need to be okay with, making the decisions that might not make sense from the outside, but you knowing your values, your outcomes, and what's important to you and the end game for you knows the right decision. Because if you are the CEO, you are also your company. As the CEO of your life, it is your privilege and your responsibility to make sure you're making decisions that are aligned with your outcomes and your values. A CEO of a successful company wouldn't say yes to meetings that don't align with their company outcomes or values. They wouldn't take meetings or commit to something just because they felt bad. Or if they did, they probably wouldn't do it as consistently as some of us do when we say yes to commitments purely out of obligation. So at this point, you must be thinking, all right, Sam, I'm ready to take ownership of my schedule. I'm ready to start acting like this CEO I know I am. How do I even start? Well, stick with me here because together we're going to first evaluate your current schedule to see what needs adjustment. And then we're going to go and set you up so that you feel equipped and inspired to make decisions from now on as the CEO that you are. So, step one is to take a minute or two to evaluate where your time and energy is currently going. So if you have a calendar or a planner that you use, this process will be a lot easier. But if you don't use any of those tools yet, it is totally fine. Just take down, like on a piece of paper and pen, in your journal, in your notes app on your phone, what your average week kind of looks like. List out how many hours do you spend at work? How many hours do you spend traveling? How many hours do you spend studying or exercising or scrolling through social media or spending as social time with friends and family? And literally just get it all out on the page so that you have a semi-accurate or as accurate as you can depiction of what your week usually looks like. Obviously, it'll be quite difficult to get it like down to the minute, so don't stress too much. You have like some weeks are different than others, but just like a general overview of what your week usually looks like. And step two is to reflect on how this makes you feel. How does the distribution of your time investment on an average week make you feel? Are you happy with where you're investing your time? Is it in alignment with the outcomes you've set for yourself and with your values? For the stuff that is aligned, that is great. That is awesome. Hold on to those. But for now, we're actually going to chat about the stuff that isn't aligned. When you're looking at the stuff that isn't aligned with your goals, your outcomes, or your schedule, for me, it was things like endlessly playing like idle games on my phone where I was not making any real money. I was just like tapping my screen to make fake money. And then hours later, I just had a lot more fake money. Like, it wasn't really in alignment with my goals, my outcomes, or my values. I'll admit I still play them sometimes, but that's a whole other story. So ask yourself, looking at the stuff that isn't aligned with your goals and outcomes, what can you automate? What can you delegate? And what can you eliminate? Now, I'm going to actually take you through these three elements, explain what they are, and explain how I've done them in my own life so you can kind of get a sense of what that looks like. So, what can you automate? You ask yourself, what can you make easier or more efficient or potentially no longer in need of your direct and constant attention by employing systems? So, an example of this would be like the collaboration challenge I mentioned on social media. I invested in a system that would auto publish posts on Instagram for me, that would schedule them in. So all I would have to do was hit like post or like whatever it is. It was all set up. My caption was there. My graphic was there. It wouldn't take me a billion years to sort through my folders or, send stuff to myself from Canva and all of that kind of stuff. I still had to pay attention to my social media. I was still online and I was still engaging, but I wasn't spending all of this excess time just setting up the process. It was already done. It was a click of a button and then I was online and ready to go. It didn't require me to be fully present at every step of the process because past Sam had already taken care of it. So even if you don't have a business, there are still so many ways you can begin to automate processes in your life. So some of the things that I would do, when your paycheck comes in, are you manually transferring into your savings account like every single week or every single fortnight, every single paycheck, or does it transfer automatically so you don't have to think about it? Are your bills or your memberships or your fees set on direct debit, or are you having to manually handle that each month or each time the bill comes in the mail? The key to automation is to remove the necessity for decision making when possible, because decision fatigue, it's a real thing, and it takes away some of the mental processing power that you have to be creative, to show up every day, to have energy and motivation to do difficult things. Because if your brain is already using all of this capacity to try to remember to transfer a certain percentage of your paycheck into a savings account, and remember that your gym fee is due, and remember that you need to have money in your account for your phone bill, like these are just all of these things that are taking up real estate in your head, and there are more important things that could be that energy could be used up on. And so that is the key to automation. See, obviously paying bills and saving money, they're all really, really important. So automation isn't about, getting rid of stuff because they're not important. Obviously they are important. The question then becomes, though, do they require 100% of your focus and undivided attention? Because it's likely that it does not. All right, so let us move on to delegation. If automation is getting help from systems, then delegation is getting help from other human beings. Now, the hardest working individual wouldn't be able to come close to the potential of an average team. And the reason for that is because when you collaborate and when you get help from other people, your results equal your potential and effort multiplied by everyone else's potential and effort in your team. Whereas when you're doing it on your own, you're literally on your own doing it. Remember that through this process, you are the CEO. While the CEO of a successful company might be aware of what's going on in their company, they're definitely not spending their time doing the things that other people can do, and other things that other people are probably more experienced or like know how to do better. Things like graphic design, IT, marketing, social media. A good CEO might show up and, work in that department for a little to kind of get a feel for what's going on in their company. But it's unlikely that they'll be spending hours, in graphic design instead of attending an important meeting that requires the CEO's attention and presence. A great CEO builds a team that they can trust, who they empower to take responsibility for their contribution to the company. A great CEO delegates tasks that are still important to the successful running of the company, but don't require the direct attention of themselves as the CEO. Now, in your own life or in my life, in our average kind of day, because I don't know about you, but I'm not like a high profile CEO in a corporate environment kind of thing. So it might be a little bit strange to be thinking about it this way. But in my own life, it kind of looked like getting an assistant or a social media manager to help out in the business. Casey, our last podcast guest, provides these services. So make sure you go check her out if you haven't already, because she is an absolute gun. If you get her on your team, you'd be lucky to have her. Now, in your home life, that might look like outsourcing meals to a delivery service that brings, ready-made meals to your doorstep. It might be hiring someone to clean your house, or even outsourcing odd jobs around the house to professionals who kind of know what they're doing, instead of you just tinkering around for hours trying to see if you can make it work to save a couple bucks. Now, I do have to make a point here, because I know that this might be an unpopular opinion, but delegating and outsourcing what you can doesn't make you lazy or entitled or a princess, at least when you're doing so to free up more time for the tasks that do need your direct attention. Like, obviously, I would personally feel like it's a different story if you're outsourcing everything so you can just, lounge on the couch and do nothing for the entire day. But you know what, at the same time, if that's what's important to you and you've earned it, then you do you. I just need to say that I am obviously very, very hyper aware of the fact that being able to delegate and outsource and hire people to help you is a massive privilege that not everyone has the option to take. So I'm not saying that you have to delegate everything. What I am saying is do what works for you and your personal situation. And at the same time, I encourage you to take a look at your reasoning for not delegating and not getting some help. And this is really important because this is a reflection, or a really honest self-reflection anyway, that I had to do, because I was really, really certain at the very beginning of my business journey that I couldn't afford to get help. I was like, you know what? I don't have the money to pay for an assistant or to hire a graphic designer or to do all of these things. Like, I can figure it out on my own. A big reason that most of my clients have is that they can't afford it. Like, monetarily, it's not a safe or smart decision to make, to fork out a few $100s for someone to do something that we could probably figure out ourselves. What shifted my perspective though on getting help was asking myself, or actually realizing, I should say, that it wasn't a matter of whether I could afford to get help. It was more of a question as to whether or not I could afford not to. So I looked at the task. So let's use the example of like designing my website. I could get, in the very beginning, I tried to figure out, do I design it myself or do I hire a web designer to help me set it up? And, I figured I could save some cash by doing it myself. But then I said, what is really the cost to me if I did it myself? So if I did get help for the website, I found out it would cost me about $3,000 for it to be set up from scratch and ready to launch. So the cost to me would essentially be $3,000. I could have the website up within 2 weeks with minimal attention from me. So time-wise, it would only really cost me maybe an hour or two to, meet with a designer, discuss what I was after, and then for her to like answer any questions that I had to help me manage it and edit it after the process. Now, past Sam, not CEO Sam, but past Sam, would have automatically been like, whoa, okay, $3,000 is a lot of money. YouTube and Google is free. I'll just figure this out. And so that's initially what I started off doing. I decided that I was just going to figure this out. It wasn't worth spending $3,000. But about 3.5 hours into my research, still trying to figure out what's the best platform to build my website on. I hadn't even gotten to all of the other stuff yet. I realized that the cost of doing it alone was a lot steeper than just forking out the cash. Because here is something that I really, really want you to hear as someone who's been a client, but also someone who provides services to clients as a coach. When you hire a professional, you're not only paying for the service that they're providing, you are also paying for what's often years of experience and trial and error, and them learning how to refine their results. Because when I looked at this process as CEO Sam, the $3,000 investment was all of a sudden, it wasn't just, okay, for $3,000, I was getting a website. I realized I could ask the web developer directly, what's the best platform? What's the best service provider? What's the best software? Where should I host it? All of that stuff, instead of having to spend hours reading through articles from people that I didn't know if they actually had any expertise in the field. I had someone I could go directly to for information about how to actually work on my website and use the back end. I wouldn't have to spend hours designing and clicking and guessing and obsessing just to get the look right. Some people might enjoy that. I'm definitely not one of those people because I get so impatient. So having someone I could literally like verbally communicate my vision to then have them just create it with what felt like absolute magic was absolute game changer. And I wouldn't have to watch hours and hours of YouTube videos trying to figure out something that the web developer could teach me in like a minute. But most importantly, I was getting down the condensed down version of all of this developer's expertise in a neat package that was personalized to what I wanted. Now, for me, that was all time that I would have to spend on my own if I didn't get help, that I would never, ever, ever get back. Those are hours that I realize I could be spending doing things that only I can do that actually make me money, like coaching my clients or creating a new program, something that actually does need my focused attention that I can't or don't want to outsource. So in the delegation process, or figuring out what can you delegate, I urge you to ask yourself that if your reasoning is I can't afford to get help, ask yourself, what is the cost to me if I don't get help? Time is our most precious, non-renewable resource. You can't earn it back by working harder. You can't change your mind and get it back or get more of it if you feel like you've made the wrong investment. Obviously, there are certain situations that really do mean that we're restricted in our options for getting help. But in situations like that, I then challenge you to be a bit creative. When I first started my business and didn't have as much expendable cash, I did some other things that helped me move my business along. So things like offering an internship or work experience in exchange for a reference to like high school and university students. And there are a lot of places online that you can advertise these things. You can work in collaboration with your universities who have, marketing students or publishing students or design students who actually need like stuff for their portfolio, and they'll do it for free. And, I swapped services with people. So I'd coach them and they would design something for me or teach me how to do something I didn't know how to do. For me, it was about figuring out what is the way, because there always is a way. I realized that it was up to me to get resourceful. So if you don't actually have the cash to hire like help, see if there's another way that you could get someone on board to help you out. And finally is eliminate. So when I first went through this process, I was a bit embarrassed and very shocked just how much time I was investing in things that didn't need the time or probably didn't deserve the times, like those idle games on my phone definitely fell into this category of needing to eliminate. But in my business, this looked like, going through my inbox and deleting literally hundreds of emails that I would never read again, instead of just unsubscribing from the mailing list. In my personal life, it was, the games, but it was also things like eliminating my habit of leaving my folded clothes on my bed instead of putting them away, to the point that a week later, there would just be like half piles of clothes on my bed and I'd have to put in double the effort to like refold them and actually put them away. Like I had these unbelievably inefficient habits and processes that just ate away at my time. So the next step is to ask yourself what you currently invest your time in that either doesn't align with your goals and outcomes or is no longer serving you. And keep in mind that things that make you happy, things that help you relax or help you enjoy life might actually be serving you. But it's just a matter of being really honest with yourself and evaluating exactly what it is you're giving your time and attention to and whether they deserve it. So a lot of my clients mention, I spend hours scrolling through social media. Like I feel like it's just too much. When you're eliminating things from your schedule, it doesn't have to be, I'm not going to use social media ever again. I'm never going to scroll through. Like I'm never going to just like mindlessly go through Instagram. It's more like, okay, well, how much time do I actually need to get the benefit of relaxation? Because you could probably scroll for 20 minutes and get the same effect as scrolling like for 5 hours, but you won't have like the hangover of just scrolling through for hours, realizing you just scrolled away 5 hours of your life. You know what I mean? So it's about being really honest with yourself about what you're spending your time on and how much of your time you're actually investing in it. Anyway, that is the automate, delegate, eliminate process. And it's also a process that you can go through for the things in your life that you feel do align with your goals and your outcomes. So there are some things that I used to do, like working on my social media posts that obviously aligned with my goals because I knew that social media would help me grow my business. But at the same time, I also realized automating that process and delegating that process freed up time for me to do other things that only I could do. So while I wasn't about to delegate it because it wasn't important or wasn't aligned, it was aligned and was important, but it also wasn't the best use of my time. So once you've gone through this process looking at the things that don't align with your schedule, with your values and your outcomes, I urge you to go back. You can rewind this and actually listen to the prompts again and answer those questions for the things that you said do align with your goals, your outcomes, and your values. But yes, that is that process there to help you evaluate your current schedule. Now I'm going to quickly take you through the second half of this process, which is setting you up to make decisions as the CEO you from here on out. Now, luckily, there's only one question you have to answer, and it's a simple question I ask myself to figure out whether or not something makes it into my schedule or not. And I'm very, very particular about what I let into my schedule. And this is a question I ask. If I didn't have to worry what anyone else would think, would I say yes to this? That is it. Simple. I was once told that if it's not a heck yes, then it's a definite no. Now, I'm not saying, make decisions with completely no consideration for anyone else, just selfishly with your blinders on, just doing whatever the heck you want. But what I am saying is, make decisions because you realize its importance to you. You know, don't make decisions because you're worried about how you might be perceived or what other people will think of you. That's never, ever the right reason to do something. You know, you might still say yes to something, you know, you're not too excited about, but you understand the value of saying yes. Or perhaps you don't really want to do it, but you know it's the right thing to do in the long run for you based on your outcomes or based on what's important to you. You know, making decisions as the CEO you is all about understanding the reason behind saying yes. If it's motivated by what other people might think of you, it's probably not the best decision to make. But if it's motivated by an alignment with your goals, your outcomes, who you are, what's important to you, what makes you happy, that kind of stuff, then, you know, it makes a lot more sense to say yes. But it's really just about asking yourself, well, why do I want, if I want to say yes, or if I'm feeling compelled to say yes, why do I feel like I need to say yes? Okay, well, that is the entire process there. And honestly, it sounds a lot simpler than it felt going through the process. So if you're going through this process and you find that you struggle a bit, honestly, that is totally fine. Like I said, I was trying to adopt this practice for months before I got to a place where I'm like, yes, I can see the results. I feel really good about it. I want to share it with this community. So if you're struggling with it, if you're like, this isn't for me, it's not working, send help. Literally shoot us a DM on Instagram at Time Money Mastery and let us know that it's about, you need some assistance with the CEO schedule and mindset. We'd be more than happy to workshop this out with you, because I've actually noticed such a big shift in how I'm making decisions, how I set boundaries, and how I decide what I commit to. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to be saying yes to things that I then have to back out of when I knew already when I was saying yes that I didn't want to do it, and that I probably wouldn't do it. You know, it was just not a good practice, because I was filling my schedule with things that were aligned with other people's plan for me rather than my plan for me. And I don't want that for you guys. So that is the episode. Let us know what you think about it. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts to let us know why you loved it. And we'll see you next time.
So that's a wrap. If you loved today's episode, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and let us know why you loved it.
If you know someone who needs to hear this, then send it their way and share it to your stories, tagging us at Time Money Mastery.
Feel like you're wanting just a little more? Jump on over to our Facebook community. You can find the link in the show notes.
That's all from us today, fam. We'll see you soon.